So over the next few minutes, we're going to connect the dots between a political assassination in Colombia, a major diplomatic standoff in North America, and two devastating humanitarian crises. Now, at first glance, these might seem like totally separate events. But what do they really tell us when we look at them all together? Let's break it down. Here's our roadmap. We're starting with the shockwaves from a political killing in Colombia. From there, we'll jump over to the rising tensions between Mexico and the United States. Then we cross over to the Middle East to understand the international pressure building around Gaza. And we'll make a crucial stop in Sudan to talk about a crisis we just can't ignore. And at the end, we'll tie all these pieces together. Let's get started. Okay, our first stop is Colombia. What happens when political violence strikes right at the heart of a nation? Well, a tragic event there has shaken the entire country to its core. The first reaction we need to look at is from President Gustavo Petro. His words are a really clear call to put life itself above any kind of ideology. You know, in a country with such a long history of conflict, this message is all about trying to find some common ground, some unity, in a moment of deep national division. To really understand the impact here, you have to look at the timeline. The attack itself happened on June 7th. But, and this is key, it wasn't instantaneous. For 2 whole months, Senator Miguel Uribe Turbay fought for his life in intensive care. He finally passed away on August 11th. That long, painful wait really kept the entire nation on edge. So, the big question is, who was behind this? The main line of investigation is pointing toward a group called Segunda Marquetalia. And it's really important to understand what this is. It's not just some random cartel. It's a dissident faction of the FARC, a group of former guerrilla fighters who walked away from the historic peace deal. This detail directly connects the assassination to the still open wounds of Colombia's long conflict. Okay, so from the violence of organized crime in Colombia, we now shift to how North America is proposing to fight it. And here, the relationship between the US and Mexico is at a breaking point, really, with a head-on clash over the very idea of sovereignty. You can pretty much boil down the conflict to 2 positions that just can't be reconciled. On one side, you have President Trump's proposal to use American troops to fight cartels in the region. And on the other, you have the response from Mexico's president, Claudia Sheinbaum, a flat-out, categorical rejection. These are 2 completely different visions of national security colliding. And President Sheinbaum's position on this, it is absolutely ironclad. Just listen to the repetition here. We would never permit, ever, that the US Army set foot on Mexican territory. Never. There's just no room for interpretation there. For Mexico, territorial sovereignty is a core principle. It's simply not up for debate. And while all this diplomatic tension is grabbing headlines, domestic politics, of course, doesn't stop. It's interesting to zoom in on Mexico City, where the head of government, Clara Brugada, is pushing a social policy with a totally different focus, a public care system. The goal here is to lighten the burden that has historically fallen on women, which just goes to show that internal priorities are still moving forward on their own track. All right, from the tensions in the Americas, we now move to a crisis with truly global repercussions. The offensive in Gaza continues to create not just a humanitarian catastrophe, but also a wave of increasingly harsh diplomatic reactions from all around the world. Before we even look at the reactions, we have to try and wrap our minds around the scale of the tragedy with just one number. Over 61,700 people killed. Just let that sink in for a moment. It's a number that's hard to even process, and it's what's fueling the urgency and the seriousness of the international condemnations we're about to see. The condemnation begins in Europe. From Italy, one of the G7 powers, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni uses 2 words that leave no room for doubt: unjustifiable and unacceptable. It's a direct frontal criticism of the humanitarian situation. And she's not alone. French President Emmanuel Macron takes it a step further, calling Israel's plans a disaster foretold. What we're seeing is a growing chorus of European leaders who are becoming more and more aligned, and it's dialing up the diplomatic pressure. And that pressure is coming from the highest international body. The UN, through its Secretary General, isn't just talking about the deaths of journalists. he uses a much stronger word, asesinato, murder. And he goes further, demanding an independent investigation, which echoes how Amnesty International has classified this as a potential war crime. This whole climate of condemnation is the backdrop for a major diplomatic move. Australia announcing it will recognize Palestine as a state at the UN. Israel's reaction is immediate and completely opposite, calling it a grave error that rewards terrorism. This exchange perfectly illustrates the global polarization this conflict is creating. Now we need to turn to a brutal crisis that often gets pushed out of the headlines. A massacre in Sudan. It is absolutely critical that we talk about this. We're talking about at least 40 people killed in a single attack, but that number doesn't even begin to tell the whole story. See, these people didn't die in combat. They were attacked by the paramilitary RSF forces inside the Abu Shuk camp, a place that was supposed to be a safe haven for displaced people. This was a deliberate atrocity against people who were already fleeing violence. It's a flagrant violation of every humanitarian law. Okay, we've gone all over the world, from Bogota to Darfur, through Washington, Gaza, and Mexico City. Now, to wrap things up, let's take a step back and try to see the big picture. After this whole tour, the question is just unavoidable. Are these all isolated incidents, just random crises that have no real connection to each other? Or are we actually seeing the symptoms of the same underlying illness? A world order that is fracturing right before our very eyes. That's the thread connecting all of these headlines. And it's the key question we all need to be asking.